There we go. Welcome to week 3 of the Rip Current podcast. We welcome you in, everybody, on a special Monday edition. This will be airing on Monday, not Tuesday, because there is a game tonight on Monday against the Foresters, a makeup game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. First, I want to say our broadcast today is powered by Cityside Fiber, OC Riptide's favorite gig speed fiber internet provider. Andrew Giesler, Sam Evans, Aidan Pham, Huon Fitzpatrick. We say what's up for week number 3, and it was a okay week, I guess, for the Riptide. 2-3 in the 5 games that they played, went down and lost their first 2, which never helps, especially against the Waves, who aren't necessarily the best team in the league. Let's kind of get into it. It'll be a little bit of a shorter episode today, just for the purposes of trying to get something out to you guys on a Monday. We'll go through the schedule, then kind of go through the standings, what's coming up next week, the promos. We'll obviously do our Player of the Week roundtable, and maybe a little bit more talking about some of the pitchers and some of the stars that we saw from this week in each of the games. But first, let's get through this week. First, it was a loss 11-2 to the Wave. That was a tough way to start off this week. That had multiple road games inside of it. The middle 3 were all road games. Then a 5-0 loss to the Barons to start off that road stretch. We beat the Blues at Slow and then lost the first half of the home and home to the Oaks before coming back and winning big 11-3 against the Oaks in that second half of the home and home yesterday on Sunday. So let's start first. 11-2 in that Waves game. Obviously, just not necessarily what we would have liked to see. Any thoughts on that, Sam? I know you and Aiden both had a whole lot of thoughts on it when we were talking before. You want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I thought that game was just a really poor performance from the entire Orange County roster. They didn't really show up. It sort of felt like there was a lack of energy. It wasn't necessarily the A lineup that we've seen from Coach Evans, and just didn't execute, didn't play well. And the Waves are a good enough team that if you really just don't bring your A game at all, you're going to lose no matter who you're playing against in this league.
Right, and yeah, it just wasn't the Riptide's night at all. Like Sam said, the bats were just limited to 4 hits, and we were talking about how this was a disappointing loss because going into this big road week, I mean, it felt like they needed this big win to launch them towards it, and just an 11-2 loss is never the way you want to start the week if you're the Riptide.
Or anything to add on that? I think they kind of covered basically everything, though.
No, I'm good. Yeah, they covered it.
Yeah, it was, I mean, certainly a tough loss. There was a whole lot that went wrong. The Waves ended up hitting all the way around in that 7th inning. They brought 5 runs across there. One positive, I said I was going to want to be positive today. I don't know. I'm just in a positive mood. So I'm going to shout out some of the pitching, the later half of that pitching squad, especially Jack O'Malley. He had been coming off of that Foresters game, I'm pretty sure, where control was somewhat of an issue. Came back through 2 innings pitched, no hits and no walks more that I want to focus on. It did have an error, did have a base runner due to an error, but I think he pitched really well, 3 strikeouts as well. He did something really cool in the past game against the Oaks, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Our data people were able to get some cool stuff on that. But yeah, you guys kind of nailed it. Just nothing really was clicking for the Riptide, which carried over into the next game also against the Barons. It was a 5-0 loss in Compton against MLB Academy. And that's a tough one to lose because it's the Riptide and the Barons right now that are fighting for that last playoff spot because Foresters, they don't go to the playoffs, and then Conejo and Saints, they're the first 2, and then us and the Barons are fighting right now. We'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about the standings. But 5-0 loss against the Barons is myself and Sam Evans on that call. Sam, what did you kind of see from that game?
Yeah, it was just a game that started poorly. The Riptide gave up 3 runs in the first inning. That was their 5th straight game giving up first inning runs, their second straight giving up 3 first inning runs. So it was just ugly from the start. And unlike in some of the prior games where the Riptide bats had gone into it, that just never happened. They had 3 or 4 hits in that game. They were all singles. So it was a really poor performance from bats, and it just meant that there was no chance to come back in that game.
All of them were singles. One, of course, from Bradley Navarro because, well, he's always going to get a hit. Jimmy Zakar, he got one, and then Tyler Holland had one in there as well. And staying on that positive note, wait, scratch that. We're going to stay negative for 1 second. You talked about how many games straight it was letting up runs, and I'm going to take that on a little bit of a bigger sample size. That was 7 of the last 9 that they've let up a run in the first. And that's tough to win baseball games that way, especially when you have a whole lot of home games, and this is the first road stretch that we've had, and we're only 2 games into it, that the Riptide have let up that many runs to start, is you're going down early and you're already having pressure. Oh no, now we have to find the bats at some point. And normally they come. Normally it's kind of that middle stretch, especially when they end up going up by big. It's in that 4, 5, 6 range that they end up putting up a lot, especially in the Oaks. We put up, I think it was 5 and 5th in the 6th inning. So it's just really hard to go down early. So back to that positive point, someone I want to shout out, Jimmy Zakar. He had, I think, probably his best game. I'm not going to say a breakout game necessarily, but he went 1 for 2 with a walk. And then that hit was just an easy hit. And we were talking with him afterwards, and he said, yeah, the hitting just wasn't there for the team, which is kind of funny because that was by far my best game in seeing the ball up at the plate, which is something that you do want to hear. You're 20 games into the season, which is absolutely crazy that we're technically halfway into the season at this point. Sam, you brought up the fact that no, we're not halfway through the season because the Riptide are going to the playoffs and they're making a long playoff run, which I love to hear the confidence of that. And you certainly hope that they will, but I have a feeling it's going to be a battle between the Riptide and the Barons heading into the playoffs. Sam, any closing thoughts on that Barons game, or we want to hop over to the next one? All good? Perfect. So then we go to slow. We had people actually going out to slow, and it was kind of funny. Aidan and I had a conversation on the broadcast. He's already smiling. We were talking about the distance to the slow game, and he mentioned that it was 3 hours from Irvine. And I was like, might be a little bit more than 3 hours. And I think it ended up being being the case. So let's start first. Thoughts, Aidan, from that Blues game. Then we can jump to Huon. You were on the call for that one also, right? Yeah. Yep. So we'll jump to Aidan first, then Huon on that 8-1 win over the Blues.
It felt like a must-win game for the Riptide after you dropped the first 2 of the week. And you guys brought up how they give up runs in the first inning. That was something that Huon and I talked about at the top of the broadcast. You got to be able to get the bats going. They were just averaging 3 hits in the last 3 games. So you got to get the bats going. You got to be able to limit the runs in the first inning. And I think that's exactly what they did. You get the home run from Carter Dans that sparked something for the Riptide.
Huon?
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. It was kind of the opposite. They scored first, and the Blues did not. Obviously, the Carter Dans home run, and then it kind of just sparked it from there. They had help from the Blues defense. The Blues actually made 6 errors in that game. Their center fielder, I believe, made 2 or 3 of his own on like pretty routine play. So they had some help from the defense, but we've seen sometimes they get on with errors and then nothing really happens with that. But this time against the Blues, they took advantage of those errors. They would, because a lot of the errors came on hits anyway, so they got a hit and then an error advanced a runner, and then they would get a double that would bring the run home. So the offense just felt really much more complete than it had over the last 9 or games or so when they had given up those early runs. And I was a little worried coming in. Obviously, the long road trip, they had dropped the first 2 games of the week. It was about a 4 or 5 hour ride up to slow. It was just going to be a really long day, and I thought they didn't look tired at all. The bats came out firing, and just start to finish, really good game.
Yeah, and I talked with the slow broadcaster actually when they came to us. It was a 3-2 loss. Slow beat us, and that was the day after that the Blues lost to the Barons 20-4. And I was talking with their broadcaster, and he said, "Yeah, we never play well off the bus. That's just the case, and that's not good because they're driving all over the place. All these away games, aren't really close to slow, because especially if they're coming to play the South teams instead of going up to the North teams, which is the section that they are in. So going to that first inning, sorry, I'm going to quickly put my thoughts on it. We had 3 hits, a double, a home run, and a single. So that's a great way to start a game. And I think if you are the away team and you are the Riptide, you've got to be hoping. You've got to frame that, put it in the dugout, and think this is what we're aiming for every single time that we are going to bat first in an away game, because sometimes the bats go quiet and things just don't go their way. All right, moving on swiftly to the next game. It was a 7-6 loss against the Oaks. It was Sam and Huon again on the call, right? And that was, a dagger loss. Went into the 11th inning. Sam, I think you said something about a strike away from the Riptide winning. Well, let's kind of talk through that one, because they certainly didn't go single, double, home run in that first inning, and the pitching was on fire at the beginning, right?
Yeah, it was a game that really started going very fast. I think we were halfway through regulation in under an hour. It flew by. Tracy was on the mound for the Riptide on his birthday, threw 4 perfect innings. Cutter Dan's made his debut, had a quick inning. So the game was really moving, and then it sort of slowed to a crawl as both teams' offenses woke up, and you had the Riptide take the lead, and then you had the Oaks take the lead, and the Riptide took it back, and the Oaks tied it up. And eventually in the 10th, the Riptide had cashed in their, automatic runner on second. And then defensively, they'd been able to pick off the automatic runner who was trying to advance on a potential wild pitch. And so they had the runner on third picked off, and you were able to get just a strike away and just didn't execute. Nick Bond was on the mound for the Riptide, and he couldn't get an out. And unfortunately, Oaks were able to come back and win the game.
Yeah, it just felt, as Sam said, very fast. Trey Seeley pitched about as well as you can. He had a lot of strikeouts, didn't give up anything. I don't think a team scored until maybe the 6th inning of that game. Carter Dans, we've seen him be successful with the bat. I thought he looked fairly good on the mound in his first appearance. But yeah, I think it was just kind of a heartbreaker for the Riptide, because every inning that they scored, the Oaks would immediately score right after. So they would put up a run, the Oaks would put up a run. Riptide maybe scored 2, the Oaks would respond with 2, and then it was definitely hard that, as Sam said, Nick Bond a strike away from winning the game. They picked off the runner at third, the automatic runner. It felt like they had it in the balance, and then the Oaks just 2-out battled, and they brought home 2 runs in that 11th inning to win the game. It wasn't a bad game for the Riptide. I thought they played pretty well. It's just you want to be able to finish games like that, and they couldn't do it.
Best teams in the league also. So Fortune is, I think, those are right next to that. Riptide, just looking quickly at my book, 13 hits, but left 9 people on base. That's certainly a problem. Before we get into yesterday's game, let's get a word from one of our sponsors. Experian is your BFF, big financial friend. Big enough to have the resources and knowledge that have an impact, personal enough to help with what's best for only you. No matter where you are in your financial journey, your big financial friend is a trustworthy companion by your side. Wherever you are on your financial journey, your big financial friend is ready to help you navigate the smartest way to reach all your personal financial goals with solutions you can trust. This is Experian, your big financial friend for life. For more information, go to Experian.com. So we had a whole lot of away games. Finally, we can have all 4 of us back in on a conversation. And Riptide versus the Oaks, game number 3 in kind of the series between these 2 teams. Game number 2 in the home and home. So this was a big game. I think that everyone knew, especially Riptide, or the Riptide, that this was a very big game and that they needed to win. And it seemed like it was tight. And then all of a sudden, the Riptide go down by 2. And I said it on the broadcast with Hugh, and I said, that although it feels like a 2-run game, there's no way that the Riptide can let this be more, or else this game is going to get out of reach. And then that was, I think, in the 4th inning. We put up 1. and then the fifth inning happened, and then the sixth inning happened, and the game wasn't close. So let's hear your guys' thoughts on the 11-3 win against the Oaks.
Yeah, I can go. I thought it was a pretty good performance all around. I'll shout out the defense first. It's one of the few games we've seen this summer. I was telling Andrew, like when we were wrapping up yesterday, that they didn't make any errors, but they've had some games where they haven't made errors, but there's been some plays that were questionable, could have been errors, were ruled as hits, stuff like that. But the defense just looked really, really good yesterday for pretty much the first time all season. I thought obviously the offense was really good. They put up 5 runs in back-to-back innings. The pitching was good, only allowing the 3 runs early, and then the bullpen shut it down. So I thought after the heartbreaking loss the day before against the same team, I thought the Riptide did a good job of coming out and beating a team, really beating up on a team that they've done twice now that's second in the standings. They're technically that first playoff team because the Foresters don't participate. So I thought it was a really good win after the tough loss the day before. And Coach Evans said it on the bus when we got off on Saturday. He was like, "Tough loss. Let's go back out there and beat their breaks off tomorrow." And I think they did just that.
Yeah, it really was a big bounce back win after you losing extra innings a day before for the Riptide. And you shouted out the defense and the pitching staff. Also, you got to give credit to Reed Montgomery. He had a terrific game. Luke Johnson continued his great week. He started the week off 0 for 5 against the Waves, and since then was just on fire all week long. So a nice job by him. And this is a big win for the Riptide, who play the Foresters twice this week. So looking to carry that momentum over.
Yeah, and I thought the pitching staff did a good job of just sort of keeping the game where it was at. I don't think Casey Uper or Jonathan Van Ness, who pitched the first 6 innings for the Riptide, had their A-plus stuff, but they were able to get through those 6 innings, just gave up 3 runs, and that sort of gave the offense time to wake up. It didn't feel like too much of a deficit, and once the offense came, it came very quickly.
Back-to-back 5-run innings. That'll certainly do it. I hinted at it before. There's two things that I want to point out back on the positive train. One of them was another good game by Jimmy Zakar. Another just back-to-back great performances. Went 2 for 3, 2 singles, and then was hit by a pitch as well. An RBI in there, but he had a very good defensive play. There's 2 of these that have happened now in the past 2 days. I was looking at the scorebook yesterday and was like, whoa, what happened? But a wild pitch, he spun around, was able to chuck that 2-piece mask off, was able to find the ball, which was bouncing back, coming in a million miles at him from the backstop, picks it up, and was able to catch Zach Mora in a rundown. And the reason I say it is I was looking at the box score the day before, and I saw that Jack Salmon got out via a 7.2635 out, and I was confused at what happened. And then today, yesterday was Zach Mora was cut out from Zakar on a 2.5163. So certainly a confusing out on the score sheet, but a good out either way. And then continuing on that, Jack O'Malley comes in and closes things down. 1 inning pitched, no hits, no runs, no walks, 2 strikeouts. And he did something pretty cool that our data people were able to talk about. Huon, do you want to talk about that, or you want me to kind of let it go?
Yeah, I can take it. I think it was really impressive. They let us the numbers. It was the last pitch of his inning. It was a strikeout looking to end the inning. He's looked fantastic his last 2 outings. Control's been an issue. Didn't have any walks yesterday or in his last outing. But that really cool thing, that last pitch on the strikeout, fastball, 97 miles an hour. I believe the fastest pitch we've seen out of any Riptide pitcher this summer. And I think that's pretty impressive.
And the fastest pitch, and he did it twice in his outing, 97 twice. So a really good player, throws the ball hard, finally getting the control down now. So big win against the Oaks, 11-3. We split that series. I thought I said it last week on the podcast that it was mandatory to split it. I said I'd love to see us win both, but it's mandatory to split that series, and we did. But looking overall at that series, the Riptide have blown out the Oaks twice and then lost a very close game that went into the 11th inning. So now we'll move on to the standings this week and get some thoughts on that, and especially the playoffs. I'm going to go read through all of it, go from top to bottom in the South. Foresters, obviously, number one. They're 13-4. We play them twice this upcoming week, so that's going to be big, especially tonight on Monday at 6 p.m. Be there at Great Park. Second place, Conejo. They're 12-6 in conference, 1.5 games back from the Foresters. Saints are 10-6, 2.5 games back. Then you'll find the Tide. They're 9-9, 4.5 games back. This is also in conference play. Barons are 7-10, 6 games back. Waves are 2-4. Bombers are 2-7. Philippines are 1-10. So just looking at that and going toward the playoff picture, Foresters, they play in their own playoffs. So top 3 teams go. Right now, that's Conejo. That is the Saints. That is the Riptide. And then the Barons are a game and a half back from us. What are you guys kind of thinking about that? You think there's a chance that the Riptide down the stretch are able to leapfrog the Saints, or is it going to be the 3rd spot and we're going to be battling it out against the Barons? That's personally my opinion. I think that will probably sit in the 3rd spot. Aidan, you're nodding your head. You want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I definitely agree with you on that. I think it's the Riptide and the Barons battling for the number 3 spot. The Barons have given the Riptide a lot of trouble in their first 2 meetings, and they play each other, I believe, twice next week or in the future. So those are going to be 2 big games on the road for the Riptide, and interesting to see down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just really wide open all the way across. There's still, as we talked about, 20 league games to play, give or take, for every team. That's a lot of baseball to be played. Baseball's a sport that comes and goes and runs, and you could have a week where the Riptide win 5 out of 6, and just like that, they're right up there with Conejo at the top of the league. Or you could have a week where the Riptide lose 5 out of 6, and all of a sudden they're a game and a half behind the Barons and fighting just to get back into the playoffs. So I think there's a long way to go, and I think that it's just important to keep stacking wins if you're the Riptide, and then look up at the end of the week and see where you're at.
Right, and as we move to Huon, we can say in terms like this, the Dodgers and the Giants were close, and then all of a sudden, what, Huon? It's 7.5 games now? What's going on? The White Sox are just destroying you guys. But anyway, your thoughts on Huon's obviously a huge Giants fan. Your thoughts on what's going on right now?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be probably just us and the Barons fighting it out, but I think this is an important stretch of the schedule. I'm looking right now. So unscheduled Santa Barbara game today. So we'll have that. Then they go up to Santa Barbara on Wednesday. Those are going to be important. You want to win those, but again, Santa Barbara doesn't really matter that much for the playoffs. And then they have a couple against the Bombers, the couple against the Philippines, one against the Waves, and then they play the Barons on Sunday this week, and then Friday and Sunday next week. And I think those are going to be probably their 3 important games. Obviously, they play the Bombers in the Philippines a bunch of times. You want to win those games. They're at the bottom of the standings. You want to just win those games, boost your conference record, and potentially the Barons maybe drop some games. You go ahead of them even more. But those 3 Barons games, even if they win 2 out of those 3, I think that's really important stretch for them. If they can win those games, 2 of them, I believe, are on the road. So the Sunday game this week is on the road, and then Friday next week is on the road. So if they can win those. But the stretch that I'm really looking at is the end of the month, the end of July, the end of our season. They play Arroyo twice in a row, then they play Conejo 3 times in a row, and then Arroyo 2 times in a row after that. And obviously that's a long way away. The standings could completely change, but that point of the season, if they can jump above the Barons like a couple games, that big stretch could really propel them into the postseason even more.
Mention the games against the Waves, the Bombers, and the Philippines. Can't drop any of those. There's no more giving wins to any of those teams because we have given wins to those teams. The Waves have beat us. They only have 2 wins in conference. One of them's against us. The Bombers have beat us. They have 2 wins in conference. One of them is us. The Philippines have beat us. They have 1 win in conference against us. So can't drop any more of those. It's end of story, period, paragraph, submit the essay, right? Yeah, so I think we kind of talked about that quite a bit. I don't think there's any closing thoughts I didn't talk about this one to you guys of what we're gonna do, but I thought it was a cool little segment. Slump breakers. We've had a whole bunch of them in the past little bit. There's Cam Burdick, there is Riley Hunsaker, and then there's Luke Johnson. So those are the three slump breakers that we've kind of had, and I'm going to say that two of them have worked so far, and one of them we haven't seen enough of a sample size. So first, Cam Burdick. Huon, you talked about it quite a bit. Sorry to have you keep going here, but what did Cam Burdick do? What was his slump breaker right now?
So Sam and I were up there in Ventura on Saturday against the Oaks, and we're like, "Oh, Cam Burdick looks a little bit different. He got a buzz cut and he dyed it blonde." And we talked to him in the outfield. He was like, "Yeah, it's a slump buster. I've been struggling. Thought I'd switch up the look, but we haven't really seen enough of him, as you said. He just had one at
Right.
bat against the Oaks. He struck out, but one at bat's not really a sample size for a slump buster. But Cam Burdick, I think he looks pretty good with the new haircut. So hopefully it propels his bat to the last 20 games of the season to be a contributor for the Riptide.
I didn't even realize it was a slump breaker originally. I was like, oh, that's just a cool haircut. I thought it was sick. I'm like, that's a summer cut. You're going down to the beach a lot. You're hanging out with friends a lot in the morning before baseball. And then you guys said there was a slump buster, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense too. Anyway, going to the second one, I'll talk about Riley Hunsaker, who this was a little bit ago. He is a guy. Who is an outfielder, pitcher, hitter, all of the above, right? Typically right field. He's a lefty hitter and normally doesn't wear batting gloves. There's two guys that do that on our team. It is Colby Moran and Riley Hunsaker. So Hunsaker was not batting as well as he'd like. He was somewhere in the mid-low ones. And so wasn't wearing any batting gloves. Then he put batting gloves on for one bat, took him back off, and then put him on, and then took him back off. And finally, now we are back to no batting gloves. And when he took him off for the next time, he hit a double and double down the line. And I was laughing with him. He's like, yeah, I guess that means that I can stop switching. So I don't know if that's necessarily a slump buster or what necessarily that is, but no batting gloves. We're back to that. And then finally, the third one, Luke Johnson changing up his walk-up song. That I don't know if you guys noticed that, but I talked to him after the game, changed up the walk-up song. He said, well, I don't know. I had to switch something up. And I don't know if he was thinking about it over the away games, but he's been on fire lately. I don't know if it's Sam or Aidan, either of you have noticed that or want to talk about that at all. Don't necessarily have the stats directly in front of us, either of you, but he's been on fire.
Yeah, he's been great, and I don't want to talk too much about it because spoiler alert, stay tuned.
Uh-oh.
There might
Uh-oh.
be a player of the week nomination for Luke Johnson, but he has been raking lately, 3 straight multi-hit games. He was a huge part of why the Riptide won yesterday. I mean, there's just been nothing he hasn't done well recently. He's played good defense. I talked with Coach Mayu, was saying that Johnson and Zach Thomas have been working to try and get him more upright in the batter's box. Felt like he was a little too low in his stance, and so moving up has certainly worked so far.
Yeah, he's been doing really well. Yesterday against the Oaks, you talked about it. Might as well say the line. He had 3 hits. One of them was a double, 2 RBIs, and 3 runs. I really feel like it was the 6 and the 7 batter, Luke Johnson and Reed Montgomery, who were both on fire. Montgomery with 3 hits, 2 doubles, 2 of them were doubles, and 5 RBIs, and then a walk in there as well, because why not? So we're going to go quickly to another word from one of our sponsors. Gone to Cityside Fiber. It's your turn to get connected with Cityside Fiber. OC Riptide's favorite gig speed fiber internet provider. Whether you're streaming, gaming, or working from home, Cityside Fiber knocks it out of the park. Step up to the plate and get connected today at citysidefiber.com. And we are going to go a little quick breakdown into what is for the rest of the day in case you're wanting to skip around. We're going to have what's coming up next week, our thoughts on what's next week. Then we're going to play into 4th of July a little bit. We're going to talk about Peartree Meats, what our favorite barbecue we've had so far is, because, 4th of July barbecue, just hand in hand. What our favorite thing from there is. It can be from our food reviews that we've done. We had Mike Ersbaumer early. It sounded like a great conversation. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. And then the promos for the week and our players of the week ahead. All right, so let's look ahead to next week. I guess it's this week already. We have a Monday game, and that's not necessarily normal. We play the Foresters tonight at 6 p.m. Be there. It's at Great Park. Play the Bombers on tomorrow at 6 p.m. We just talked about it. That's a need to win game. That's at 6, as I said. We go to the Foresters in Santa Barbara at 4:30 on Wednesday. I know I'm going to that game. Do we know who else it is? Me and Aidan. All right. That'll be a fun time. You'll be able to hear us on the Riptide radio. The link will be sent out on the OC Riptide Instagram. It is on Mixler as well, OC Riptide. Just search that up. It'll be the big orange swinging a baseball bat, the OC Riptide. Then we play the Bombers on Thursday at 7 p.m. Friday is 4th of July. Day off on that one. Everyone able to have a little bit of fun, do what they want. Saturday is the Philippines at 7 p.m. And then Sunday is the MLB Academy Barons. I think it's at MLB Academy, and that is at 1:05. The earliest start we'll have to a game this entire year. So that is on Sunday. Not sure exactly who's going to that game. I think possibly me. Is it Huon and is it me and Huon? Sounds like maybe me and Huon. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. So you'll be able to hear on OC Riptide Radio that one as well. As I said, OC Riptide, or just look at our Instagram, find the link. So looking at this next week, we've previewed it quite a bit. I think the 2 Forester games, if you can win one of those, you're thinking, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Especially the one on the road. I don't necessarily think that one is as tangible as the one tonight at home, but I think that splitting that this week could be huge. Then obviously the MLB Academy game is massive. Got to win that one. Any thoughts for you guys? I know we've talked about the schedule so much and all that sort of stuff. Nothing? All right.
I mean,
so, Aidan, all right, let's hear it.
I was just going to quickly touch on the last time that the Foresters and the Riptide played each other. The Foresters walked it off, and I think in talking to some of the guys and the coaching staff, when they can play neck and neck with the Foresters, that gives them a lot of confidence moving forward. So I think we're in for a treat in these 2 games this week.
Now that the Riptide have beat the Oaks twice, who I think are significantly better than the Saints. I've seen both games of the Saints. I think that the Oaks are better than the Saints. That it helps confidence-wise as well, that you've beaten the Oaks, but and the Saints as well. You've beaten them once and then lost in the other one. You're a good team, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Just the fact that they've dropped kind of games against the Waves, the Bombers, and the Philippines, and that's what's really hurting them. So let's move on. Our 4th of July segment, which is Peartree Meats. We've been able to have a whole lot of barbecue the past month, and gosh, is it good. I'll give my opinion on what my favorite barbecue item is from there, but let's go around. Sam, you got something on the top of your mind, or you want to skip to someone else first?
I love the mac and cheese there. I'm a big mac and cheese guy. I think the mac and cheese at Peartree is very good. Every time I was trying to steal Huon's mac and cheese on Tuesday. I thought he said he didn't want it, and I reached for it, and he we're on the air, and he gave me the no fingers. I had to put it back.
All right, Huon, what's your favorite? What do we got?
Well, clearly I like the mac and cheese as well, but since Sam said it, I'll say the baked beans. I think baked beans are kind of an underrated aspect of that barbecue kind of 4th of July thing. I think Peartree Meats does a good job. A lot of barbecue flavor in them. They're smoky. So if you can go get the beans as a side to your meat, I think the beans are a really good option as well.
Yeah, I mean, the mac and cheese is obviously great. I would go with the tri-tip as well. I think if you combo the tri-tip and the mac, that's an elite combo right there. And I know Andrew and I, when we're outside sometimes, that's sometimes our snack in between innings.
That's exactly what I was going to go with. I'm kind of mad that you took it, but it's the tri-tip and the mac. It's the combo. Zach Crandall had that one as well. It is so good. If you go, I think what you've heard from this, definitely get the mac and cheese. And then if they have the tri-tip, because we've tried to get the mac and cheese tri-tip mix before and they don't have it. Mac and cheese brisket is also a great combo. I think the answer is you can't go wrong with whatever you get. Huon and I yesterday, I think I said in between every single inning and possibly once or twice during it, I'd look over them and I'd say, I'm so hungry right now. And we were thinking about getting burgers and we didn't end up doing it, but I think we definitely should have. So Peartree Meats, thank you for being with us the entire season. If you have not been able to come out and try, make sure you do that. Had a great time to do it against the Foresters today. Watch some great baseball on a Monday night. So let's jump to our promos now for this upcoming week. Only 2 of them. Thursday, start your weekend early with Thirsty Thursday on July 3rd, where great drinks and good vibes and fan energy collide once gates open at 6 p.m. Those who are 21 plus can enjoy exclusive drink specials brought to you by Judge Brewery. I think that's patriotic night, but Saturday, I can guarantee you that one against the Philippines is red, white, and you. So make sure to wear your red, white, and blue themed outfits. And I just want to give a shout out to Huon on the great outfit that he had yesterday with the hat on top of the headset. We were trying to kind of introduce the show, and I couldn't stop laughing because it was such a good Western outfit. I just loved it. And then looking ahead to next Tuesday, so we're already going a full 8 days ahead. It's on July 8th when we play the Philippines. Christmas in July. That's going to be a fun one. I promise you none of you are going to outdress me on that one. I'm just going to say that right now. I'm a big Christmas guy. I don't think you guys can do it. I just don't think you can. I dare you guys to. How about that? So now that we're through that, let's go to our last segment, our roundtable player of the week. Let's start with Sam because you've basically already said who you have. This week, we're kind of allowing, if you guys do have repeats, you can say exactly who you think. But Sam, let's hear it.
If anyone wants to join me on the Luke Johnson train, feel free to come in. I'll lay my case out. He is 8 for his last 14. He's driven in 3 runs. He's had 2 doubles. He's scored 4 times. Multiple hits in each of the last 3 games. 3 hits in each of the last 2 games. He's been red hot. If the wind was blowing to left field, not right field, he'd have a home run on top of that as well because he almost sent one out yesterday. He's played great defense over at second base. I think the move to primarily have him play the infield this week rather than having to worry about the uncomfortable outfield position for him has been a really good thing. So to me, he's just been the best player for the Riptide all week long, been a huge part of what they got going against the Oaks on Sunday and try and keep it going coming up here the rest of this week.
I think he's been good. Does anybody think that their player has been great or better? Or do we all have Luke Johnson today? Aidan has someone different. Come on, let's hear it.
I would go with Luke Johnson too, but to change it up, I think we got to give credit to Grant MacArthur. Grant MacArthur's another guy who has been great this week. He had 2 multi-hit games against the Blues and the Oaks on Saturday. Against the Blues was the game that really caught my eye for him. He was 3 for 5, 2 singles and a double. He's batting .353, and yeah, he has the power. We're just waiting for him to hit that big home run. So for those reasons, he's my player of the week.
Huon, you got Luke Johnson as well?
Yeah, I was going to also pick Luke Johnson, but I'd like to shout out Mike Ersbaumer. I mean, he's been the ace this summer for the Riptide pitching staff, and he just did it again against the Blues up in slow. 5 really, really good innings. Didn't have the strikeout numbers that we've seen from him this summer, but that didn't matter. He got outs. He pitched really well in that game, got the win. We also saw him as a hitter for just the second time yesterday, got a hit. So Luke Johnson's my pick, but shout out the young Mike Ersbaumer as well.
I think that Luke Johnson's obviously one of the better, if not best answers. I think it's definitely probably the best answers. But if you're looking pitching-wise, I'm going to give it to Sealy. I think that is not a crazy shout at all. 4 innings pitched, a perfect baseball with 6 strikeouts. He struck out 6 of his first 9. And I think that was a huge reason why that was such a close game against the Oaks that we were playing against is because the pitching was just on fire and the bats just hadn't gotten hot yet. So that was kind of what we were looking for out of Celia. I think his first start was an anomaly, like where it just didn't go his way. And we knew he was good. And it certainly turns out he is very good. So hopefully we'll be able to see him again pitching at home. If not, well, you'll be able to hear him on the radio. But Luke Johnson ends up being our player of the week here on the Rip Current podcast. And I'm looking at my watch. It looks like it might be time to be done. We appreciate everyone tuning in to this week number 3 of the Rip Current podcast. Andrew Giesler, Sam Evans, Huon Fitzpatrick, Aidan Pham. Show up tonight against the Foresters at 6 p.m. Big game. We'll see you there. Until next time, until week number 4, we say, see you later.